Okay, run.
Hey, all right, sweet. Hey guys, my name is Sam. This gentleman with me is Jay Qualls. We're both personal trainers, and we both have the terminal illness, cystic fibrosis. Quick explanation: that's a genetic disease that average lifespan is 37. It affects our lungs, liver, pancreas, and spleen. The cause of death is usually damage to the lungs caused by a massive infection that slowly turns our lung into scar tissue over time. So essentially, we suffocate. But the digestive issues can be pretty significant as well due to pancreatic insufficiency. Cystic fibrosis related diabetes is very common. And there's just this whole little slew of side effects that come with it. We secrete more salt in our sweat. Most of us are infertile. There's a lot to it, but that's a basic rundown for anybody tuning in that's not familiar with the disease. Today's topics are we're going to start with proof that me and Jake aren't just making this stuff up about the difference that fitness makes in our lives. Fitness is still secondary to the treatments and prescriptions we take, right? We need you to follow your doctor's orders first. But if you have fitness in, it can make a very significant impact. And we're going to show you some of the research that shows us these things. The other thing that we would like to cover is types of exercise. Well, okay, what should I do, right? So we're going to give you some advice on that. Jake and I are both bodybuilders. That's what we love to do, but we're not by any means saying that that's how you should do it too. And then thirdly, we're going to give you guys the basic rundown on our nutrition. What's going to be interesting about that is that Jake has these diabetes and I do not. So there's going to be some differences in our advice. And I think that actually is excellent so that we can help people on both sides of that equation, right? Because nutrition is key. I mean, you guys hear in fitness all the time, 70% of results come from the way we eat, 30% from training. I think we could even argue there's a similar effect there on, medications and training going together. Although I've kind of always believed it's like a 60-40 thing.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely adherence to medications and treatments. We can't preach that enough, but also getting in some sort of routine with fitness and nutrition. We feel like that's the name of the game. Like Sam said, sort of a 60-40 effect, which actually brings me to a recent statistic that Sam and I read. I wanted to point out, with cystic fibrosis, a lot of times you hear from patients, and I'm just going to be blunt here, hear from patients that they did everything that they could do. They don't understand why their lung function is dropping. They took their medicines the way that they were supposed to, or they did their treatments. They got 10 hours of sleep, whatever it may be. But a recent study that we found actually suggested that a little bit less than 40% of patients with cystic fibrosis adhere to a fitness and exercise routine, whatever that may be. And like Sam said, we're both bodybuilders. We love lifting as a passion. It's not just about therapy for us. It's also
we're not the bros. We're not the bros that skip cardio, though. Both of us incorporated.
Exactly. So. No, definitely not. We do our cardio. We do our lifting. We stick to pretty strict regimens. But what we're talking about here is finding what you love. So, whether that be bodybuilding, whether it be, running a triathlon or running on the treadmill, rowing, whatever your fitness routine entails, we want to make sure that you enjoy it, and we want to make sure that it is beneficial to you. So without further ado, Sam and I are going to talk more about, the studies to once again show you guys that we're not full of it. We're not making this stuff up, and explain the benefits that CF we can sustain with CF through an exercise regimen. Sam?
Guys, I'm not going to lie. Unless you're a scientist, a lot of times you're going to look at this and not really be able to interpret what it says. My advice is if you try to read a study on your own, skip to the conclusion at the end where the scientists that have read it will tell you what data they gathered and the conclusions they draw from that, right? However, I'm going to kind of sum a lot of it up for you, right? One of the most significant things that I think is interesting that we see is in almost all cases, we see a decreased rate in mortality. Literally, there's scientific evidence that you're likely to live longer if you incorporate exercise, and that's with or without cystic fibrosis, right? On average, do we see massive jumps in lung function? Not necessarily. Around 10% or so is very normal, but we have to remember these studies are often short. They're often 4 to 8 weeks. Jake and I both took, I mean, for me, it was about a 4-year journey to go from 50% area all the way up to 99 where I am today. It was not overnight. It took a lot of time. I was doing my treatments, but a lot of these studies are done on a short term, and we're seeing increases in health in just those short-term studies. So imagine if you adhere to a program for 6 years or more, right? That's where you're really, I think, going to see significant impacts in your life.
Exactly. And just to touch on that, I'm looking at a study that I pulled up here as well. Individualized supervised resistance training during nebulizations with CF. It was posted in the Pakistan Journal of Medical Sciences. This study, it only incorporated 14 male and CF patients. With the drop of 3 patients, they dropped out of the study, and we are noticing, a 4-week, 20-minute per day, 5-day per week exercise plan during nebulizations. You saw that 10% increase in FEV1. You saw a little bit of a jump in body weight mass, but overall, just a general, happier sense of well-being. Exercise can affect so many different things. We've already touched on this last week, but you're not only affecting your mortality, which, that's a great thing. That you're doing something healthy for yourself, so you're going to feel better, but you're also getting those serotonin levels up. You're feeling better about your overall self, your overall health, and it's going to pay dividends in other parts of your lives as well.
Yeah, you've also got dopamine, endorphins, and things like that, right? So this is an interesting one, right? By engaging in exercise, the adrenergic and purinergic pathways of the body are activated, which are routes responsible for regulating the activity of ion channels on airway epithelial cells and sweat glands. Guys, that's literally what the CFTR mutated protein affects, right? The passage of these ions. This process is thought to result in systemic improvements. Systemic meaning when you take a medication, it has a systemic effect, right? It's internal to your body, right? So we have a systemic improvement as well as improvements in the pathophysiological ion dysregulation at a cellular level. Guys, what that means is all these modulators we're taking that help our CFTR membrane reach the surface of the cell and operate better, exercise naturally does that. Right? Now imagine combining the two. I'm on a modulator and I'm exercising, and I just reached the highest lung function. I thought I was done increasing after I got up to like the 92, 93 area. I went 6 months without going in, and I was dreading it because I thought my next checkup was going to suck, right? And then I blew a 99. I was like, ha! What? So it again, guys, we're not making this stuff up. If you do the things we're suggesting you do, we can literally guarantee you an increase in your quality of life, right? Now, that's cool for a lot of obvious reasons. Jake, if you have anything to add to that, go ahead. But I think that pretty well sums it up already.
That pretty well covers it. After this podcast, we're also going to post these studies in the caption and the description of our video. So that you guys can obviously research it for yourself, see what we're talking about. But there you have it, the importance of exercise, physical activity, aerobic, anaerobic, cardiovascular fitness or resistance training. It's going to have a natural benefit on your CF. So I think another thing we wanted to talk about was once again the different types.
Modalities. Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
All right, guys. So you'll see us on our Instagrams and stuff. We're doing our swole fees and our bodybuilding routines and all of that. And I think the first thing that I want to clarify is I do think cardio is technically most important when we're talking about, working on our airways, right? Let's, any type of exercise, but especially cardio, mostly targets our heart and lungs. It directly impacts our cardiorespiratory endurance. It's also going to stimulate our diaphragm, right? Our breathing muscle, right? If you strengthen that, you have more strength to pull your lungs open. It's going to help you breathe better, right? That's obvious. It also makes our body more efficient. Typically, we'll see positive changes in metabolism. Your gut kind of kicks into gear. And if you're struggling to eat enough throughout the day, well, guess what? Start exercising. And even though you're going to burn some more calories too, you're going to be able to eat more. This can help you with the malnutrition. We were looking at one of the studies, and we saw one guy's body fat percentage went up as he was exercising by 1%. I thought that was pretty noteworthy. And that may have very well been his ability to eat more. Guys, we're also going to cover nutrition today, if I didn't already mention that. So cardio should be our focus. That being said, though, I think a program completely lacking in strength training, both for a normal person or a person with CF, is, in all honesty, retarded. We'll have guys that we even see say, like, don't waste your time with the strength training. Cardio is all you need. And guys, strength training and cardio have very different effects on a body, right? And one of them is hormonal. Strength training can help increase things like testosterone, growth hormone, luteinizing hormone, FSH. There's a cocktail of hormones that strength training specifically releases. These can affect everything from your energy and mood all the way to your strength and many other factors, guys. Hormones are incredibly powerful in what they do in the body. Endocrinology is, I'll never study it because I don't think I could. But anyway, so here's the other thing, right? Cardio over long durations of time, right? When you see a 90-year-old that can run a marathon, that's not because that 90-year-old is just super dedicated and amazing. Now, he probably is those things, he or she. But people that can run and only run for that long are usually genetic freaks of nature with the best joints in the world. Most people who run only, I think the injury rate is 87% per year. So if you only run, your chance of injury in a year span is 87%. That means it's probably going to happen to you.
Right.
Well, okay, so I'm supposed to run or do cardio. Well, okay, so my first recommendation is low impact cardio. I don't like running. I don't let my clients run. I think there's better ways to do it. Bike, elliptical, Stairmaster, going up an incline on a treadmill. I think a treadmill is superior to running outside because it does absorb a lot of the impact from your foot versus concrete. When you hit it, that impact goes right back up, right? So overall, in terms of sustainability, cardio only essentially is wear and tear on our joints, right? Here's what people don't realize about strength training. It doesn't just build your muscles. It doesn't just tone your muscles. It also stimulates tendon, ligaments, and joints, right? Those things have to get stronger. So when people say squats are bad for your knees, well, I'm like, well, yeah, 1,000 pounds in really improper form, you have some issues there. But if you're squatting properly, that's going to give you healthier knees versus cardio alone is more likely to injure your knees. So guys, any program should incorporate both cardio and some type of strength training. Jake, what would you like to add at this time?
Right. Well, and you kind of covered it, but in terms of strength training, you're looking at an increase in joint mobility. You're looking at an increase in bone density. You're looking at a cut in the risk of, osteoporosis, cystic fibrosis related arthritis. It's funny. You pretty much just said word for word what was going to come out of my mouth. Yeah, you go in and try to do 1,000-pound squat, your knees are going to feel too hot. Just like if you go in and try to run a marathon. So anything done to a ridiculous amount or however you want to work it, done in that way, it is going to cause, potential injury. The fact that, Sam and I can lift relatively heavy amounts of weight it's based on several years of practice and dedication to our craft, but also, we have a love for weightlifting. I think it's fair to say, because genetically we're good at it. We enjoy weightlifting because it's something that, you don't think so?
I'm gonna argue with you on that one. No, dude, when I started, I couldn't even bench press the bar at the age of 15.
No, I couldn't either. But I mean, within a year of us actually practicing and staying dedicated, we saw gains. We saw exactly what we wanted to see out of our bodies. And I mean, you're looking at doing it several years in a row, so 5-6 years of dedicated practice. That's, basically we stuck with it because what we were doing is working and we enjoy it. But that being said, if you guys are going to go out and run or swimming is an amazing exercise, by the way. That a lot of doctors recommend swimming. And the crazy thing about it too, with swimming, you're not only getting the cardiovascular fitness, you're also getting somewhat of a resistance training. The pool of the water and everything else that you're doing while swimming is actually working on your muscles, your muscle mass, your bone density, everything that we just covered. And so having a plan, kind of like what Sam said, that is cohesive in terms of cardiovascular fitness and exercise training or resistance training, that's exactly what we believe is the best way to go about things. Now, with that being said, can you do cardio while strength training? And to me, I definitely believe you can. So there are several different ways to incorporate high intensity interval training with weight training, right? So you've got the circuit training where Sam, I think you actually said earlier, you pick 5 machines, right? 5 machines out of the gym, and you do those 5 machines with repetition for several different sets.
Yeah, you just go from one to the other, to the other, to the other, and you take no breaks, right? Guys, I promise you, that will feel like cardio. It is. It gets your heart rate up. I'm a real big fan of using functional exercise for cardio. So a lot of my clients, especially those that are getting started, and I need to help them create like a foundation. And I need to throw out some recommendations to beginners while I'm on this topic too. I really like to start with functional movements, things like body weight squats, push-ups, lunges, sit-ups, crunches, things like that. Natural movements you don't even need a gym to do, right? And we can do these in a rotation, right? So again, we're getting out of breath, we're increasing our, airway capacities and things like that. Guys, airway clearance is another huge aspect of exercise as well. Jake, I'm sure it's very common for you and anybody else with CF that exercises. As you're exercising, it's almost as effective as your treatments, right? Helping to expel some of the mucus that's built up into the lungs. That's a huge aspect. And so if you do your strength training correct, because here's the thing, I'm gonna be honest, I hate cardio. I have always hated cardio. So I had to figure out a way, well, how can I change my strength training, which I enjoy, in a way that I'm still gonna benefit my fight against cystic fibrosis? So I do a lot of supersets, circuits, trisets, giant sets, things like, I don't sit still during my workouts. I find a way to keep my heart rate up, to stay out of breath, to make sure that I can combine the modality that I personally love, but still do it in a way that's beneficial. So we're encouraging you all to be creative as well, right? Figure out what you like to do. Hiking, swimming, playing basketball, just anything, it will have a positive impact. Jake, one more thing that I wanted to throw out there. I got really slow results, but I know exactly why I did. You were diagnosed young. I was not.
Right.
When I started weightlifting, I wasn't on enzymes and antacids. So how well do you think I grew in response to strength training? I couldn't take in any nutrition, no matter how much I doubled in. So actually for me, my results were at a crawl. A year into it, my clients now, I can help them in 6 to 8 weeks look like it took me a year to get to, so that was one of the many downsides of not knowing I had it as a child and adolescent. So got diagnosed at 21. Right.
Well, once again, here's the medications, exercise programming. Those are the two that we really believe in. And with my training as well, you'll see on my Instagram, it's very similar to Sam's in terms of supersets, circuit training. That's what I like to follow because it's what works best for me. I'm even going to go out on a limb here, and I'll tell you that my doctor completely agrees with this. The best therapy for me is not as beneficial as a very intense workout. This is specifically for me. I'm not saying for any of you guys. For me personally, with my intensity of workouts, if I go swimming, if I do laps in a pool, if I have a very heavy leg day, I clear up more mucus. I shake my lungs up more with that intense exercise that I do sitting down on a couch with a 100% frequency on the vest. Granted, I don't have the Monarch yet. The Monarch might work better. I still have the old Dinosaur. But with that being said, using the old Dinosaur that I do have, I do not clear up as much mucus as I have with a full exercise day, a full plan.
It's interesting that you bring that up because I have the same experience, and guys, let's think about it this way. We're talking about quality of life and everything. What sounds more fun to you, sitting and getting shaken by a vest, or going outside and doing something, right? And getting essentially the same effect. I don't want to promote this because I think a lot of doctors would not like the idea, but Jake and I haven't talked about this before, so it's cool that this got brought up. My vest right now is sitting like way back in the back of my closet, and it hasn't been touched in a year. Because every time I do it, now I do my albuterol, Hypercell, Pulmozyme, occasional inhaled antibiotics. Those have a very good effect for me, but I cannot tell you how many times I've done a full session on the vest and not expectorated a single bit of mucus, like just nothing, because I already did at the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
all I get are those cool little markings on my chest that make me look like Killmonger from Marvel. I don't get any coughing secretions. It's and it sounds like that's our experience. Once again, we're not recommending that whatsoever, but heavy intense exercise for us in that way has made it so that we're getting amazing respiratory therapy, as you'll see in these studies that we show you guys as well.
Yeah, and if you guys, I mean, Jake's workouts are pretty intense too. But if y'all ever see like my leg days on my Instagram and everything, I can assure you the cardiovascular element to it is powerful. I kill myself on leg day. It's my favorite day. But anyway, yeah, guys. So that's essentially our message today. However, you got to do it. Get active. But here's the other thing too. Don't overtrain from the start.
Right.
Don't go in there and kill yourself right away, because you're not going to have a pleasant experience if you do that. You're not going to recover from it very well. Guys, we do also encourage you to ease into this. When I have new clients that are totally deconditioned and new to the gym, I actually will not let them train to muscle failure for almost an entire 6 weeks, unless their body responds very quickly and they like training to failure. But in most cases, we want to avoid excessive damage to our body and tissues. We don't want to create too much stress, especially when we have CF, and especially for those of you, oh my Lord, especially for those of you with really low lung functions. Guys, if you overdo it, that could put you down for days.
Yep.
So we want you to start really small, listen to your body, respect your body, let it tell you things. And just because one day sucks doesn't mean you give up, right? You keep going. It's going to take practice. It's going to take trial and error. You're going to have to figure out what your best route is, right? If you're a total beginner, obviously I'm a little biased here. Jake probably is too. But personal trainers can make all the difference. If you struggle with motivation, a personal trainer could really help you with that. Somebody that you have to meet that's going to hold you accountable. But you need to make sure that this trainer, if you find one, is very attentive to the fact that you have cystic fibrosis. They may not necessarily need experience with somebody that has CF if they're asking you a lot of questions and they take it upon themselves to do some research and figure out how to best help you. That's going to tell you if your trainer's good or not. If your trainer or whoever you're talking to is like, oh yeah, man, you just got to push through it, you're going to be fine, find somebody else. It's probably douchebag. And unfortunately, there are a lot of bad trainers out there, guys, like a lot of bad trainers. I managed over 80 in a professional career. 9 out of 10 of them are garbage, to be honest.
Well, and to cover two things, with every coach, because Sam and I, we both used coaches in the past for bodybuilding. I know you were talking about a certain coach that you utilized, and And I always utilize them for bodybuilding as well, just in terms of accountability. But, Sam, you just said you couldn't lift the bar when you first started working out. Like to go into a fitness plan, to walk into a gym, especially being a male, I'm going to say, being a male and not being able to do those things, you feel out of place. You feel like you don't want to come back.
Oh
Right?
yeah, man.
So
It was extremely discouraging. I had gym anxiety.
it sucks.
And yeah, and guys, that's all a normal experience. And again, somebody to teach you can make all the difference with it too. I got lucky, and my stepdad was a bodybuilder, so I did have him some instruction early on, and I'm really grateful I had him as an influence, because I don't think I would be this healthy or doing what I'm doing professionally if it weren't for his influence. So I'm very lucky I had that. But I guess I lucked out and I got that for free. Some of you guys might need to try to pay for professional help to get that same type of encouragement and guidance. So.
Well, and we talked about this previously too, like most of our clients, we don't even recommend using a barbell. When you're first starting out, we're not telling you guys to go and try a 225-pound bench press. We want you to find what's comfortable for you. And honestly, having a personal trainer take you through that, give you the motivation and accountability, but also show you the ropes, it makes all of the difference. It really does. Real quick, we also wanted to do a quick bit on nutrition. It's something that we really want to cover in future podcasts as well. But Sam, with you not experiencing CFRD yet, hopefully never, and with myself being diagnosed, we have gotten a lot of questions in the past with, well, what are you eating? How are you eating? How many calories are you eating? Are you tracking macros? These are questions we get in everyday life. But really, after this podcast that we did last week, that's been a very central question. Sam, if you want to cover a little bit more on your diet routine, your regimen, what all do you do to make sure you're getting in your
I think unfortunately with you having me go first, I know you are going to know a lot of this stuff too, but I'm actually going to try to cover some really effective but basic tips on both caloric intake being high enough, but also paying some attention to health. We are encouraged to eat anything and everything. I don't think that's smart at all. Because usually the crappier my diet has been, the worse I felt, the worse my immunity. Calories are calories at the end of the day. If you get 4,000 calories, but when you have a gut as sensitive as you do with cystic fibrosis, eating foods really high in acids, for instance, that's going to decrease your absorption. You might eat 4,000 calories physically, but if you're eating the wrong stuff and your body can't absorb anything of it, you might as well have only had 2,000 calories. So that being said, let me go over some basic stuff that has really helped me. Okay, so if we're trying to achieve a high volume, right, of as many calories as possible, but also not stop up our gut, generally we want to stick with whole foods, lean meats, even red meats in some cases, fattier meats, fish and things like that. And grains and vegetables are very important. That being said, though, I actually think too much fiber can be a mistake. So for instance, if I'm looking at something like rice, right, we have white rice and brown rice. Well, 1 cup of each is going to run about 200 calories each, right? They're the same in the amount of energy that they carry. But the brown rice, having fiber in it, is going to sit in your stomach for longer, and it's not going to digest quite as easily as the white rice. So for somebody with cystic fibrosis trying to gain weight, I highly recommend white rice. It's very calorie dense. It's one of my favorites, along with oatmeal. That's been another food that I've found that my gut tolerates very well. It digests quickly, so I can, empty my stomach and be ready for the next meal as soon as possible. Those two things have helped. My body seems to really like fish and chicken. Most of my diet does come from chicken. I'll do lean ground turkey every now and then, but fortunately, I love chicken, so it's Lately, I've been meal prepping a honey sriracha chicken recipe. It's great. You know, my vegetables, I don't eat a lot of veggies per se, because again, the high fiber content in them. Fruits, on the other hand, I think are really good for rapidly available carbohydrates. We want to pay attention to micronutrient content, our vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients and things like that. So I think a lot of fruits can be very good because fruits come with a lot of calories packed in too, whereas vegetables have virtually none. Um, so my staples are chicken, oatmeal, fruits, and fats will come too naturally. And I'm not saying you have to eat like this 100% of the time. I love mac and cheese and pizza, and I'll throw that in too. But most health experts will recommend that about 75% of your food needs to come from healthier sources, whole foods, and things like that. And then the rest of the 25%, you can do whatever you want, and probably still have a very high quality of life. Another advantage to eating healthier, again, we got to remember that most of our serotonin and dopamine are actually produced in our gut. So eating a healthier diet could literally treat depression, right? We're starting to see that the American diet has a lot to do with why our rates of depression and obesity are so high, because depression and obesity tie together, right? Mm-hmm. So as you treat your gut better with these healthier foods, you're usually going to feel better mentally in a lot of ways too. This is why we feel like crap when our diet is crap, right? There's actually a lot of emerging research showing how important the biome in our gut is, the bacteria, the good bacteria that's in our gut. And those bacteria respond well to a diversity of healthy foods. Fermented foods are also something I should throw out there. Things like kombucha as an example. Or Jake, can you think of any others? I'm drawing a blank here.
I kind of am too, because I was thinking about what I wanted to say next. So
okay, that's fine. That's fine. Anyway, I think that pretty well covers it. Oh, pasta is another great carbohydrate source. I don't overload with fats, even though they're very calorie dense, because with our pancreatic insufficiency, even when we take our enzymes to go with them, I just don't think I ever digest a whole bunch of fat very well. If I eat a whole pizza that's, filled with a lot of fat and grease from the cheese, even if I take my enzymes, I usually regret that meal the next day. And you all know what I'm talking about, in the bathroom. So
I'm exactly the same way. I'm also a huge believer, from studying different bodybuilding routines and different bodybuilders that, everyone reacts to macros in a different way. Some people react to fats in a better way, so they prefer the ketogenic diet. Some people, some people absorb carbs better. Some people absorb protein. For me personally, I react well to carbs. That's a controversial statement because I do have CFRD. And so real quick, let me tell you a little bit more about my testimony. I didn't necessarily feel completely comfortable to share, to be honest, with our last podcast, but it is something that's vital to what we're talking about here with nutrition. I told you guys I was diagnosed at about 6 months old. I was pretty much raised in a single parent household by my mom. We had to do everything we could just to survive. You're looking at a kid with cystic fibrosis who's getting admitted several times a year. They can't really figure out what else is wrong with him. And that financial burden, as you guys know, it adds up. And so for us and for the recommendations of our doctor, the doctor at the time in the 90s, it was eat whatever the hell you can. Twinkies, moon pies, cakes, just whatever you can get into your system to help your kid gain weight. And that's what my mom had to do. She worked 3 jobs. She put me in every sport known to man because she knew in her head and through literally one study was done in the 90s with exercise and CF, that an exercise program or sports is going to be good in the long run for someone with the condition. And she put me on every sport known to man, fed me whatever she could. Well, 2013, I was diagnosed with CFRD. And so I honestly believe, while my mom did everything she could, having those fast reacting carbs constantly not adhering to a good diet. It's not just about me having cystic fibrosis and my pancreas being insufficient. I caused myself to have CF related diabetes. I caused myself to have an addiction to carbs. I caused all of these different things by having that
Wow.
desirable diet. And so, this is what I personally believe. To be honest, there aren't a ton of studies out there now because CFRD is a recent epidemic. It's something that's really being shown within the past 10 years. But I honestly believe that because of my lack of nutritional information when I was younger, it caused a lot of health issues now. And so I do have a weak gut. I do have a lot of issues with digestion. I have CF bloat, as I'm sure you guys know what we're talking about there. And I see that constantly from slow reacting carbs, such as brown rice. But I do adhere. While I don't listen to necessarily the eat whatever you can to get big, to gain weight ratio, I do believe that, having carbs, even with cystic fibrosis related diabetes, it can be beneficial. If you're working out, an hour a day, doing intense cardio, working out, you're able to go to work and function, and you're correcting with insulin, which is exactly what I do. You're still going to see decent blood sugar numbers. My numbers with both my Lantus and my Humalog on a very intense workout, a very intense leg day, for instance, they're still staying within the 80 to 150 range. And even some days they get low. I worked out too much, right? And so following an intense workout schedule has helped me quite a bit lower those blood sugars. But two, also having a nutritional plan in place to where you're not just stuffing your face full of 4,000 calories worth of Twinkies. You're eating 4,000 calories worth of lean chicken, beef, turkey, fish, rice, sweet potatoes, whole food, exactly.
Yeah, and guys, I think we might even try to include a list of healthier foods along with our description in the video. I think that would be helpful. So Jake, let's make sure that we do that. I actually already have one of those lists prepared I can send to you. One more thing, guys, that I want to throw out there. When I'm working with clients and they're overweight, right? They always like to say, well, Sam, I don't actually eat that much. Maybe I'm not eating enough and that's why I'm gaining weight. And it's never true. I'm just going to tell you that. It's never true. People that are underweight do the same thing. This is what I did in the past. Man, I eat a ton. All the guys I was trying to get bodybuilding advice for was like, you're not eating enough, bro. And I'd be like, dude, I eat all the time. I'm shoveling in my face, right? Guys, what we think we eat and what we eat in actuality is usually pretty far off. So I'm going to throw out one more tip that I use with all my clients that I think is highly beneficial. You need to actually track your caloric intake. We've mentioned calories several times now, right? A calorie is a measurement of energy, right? When you're trying to gain weight, a lot of you are going to need 2,800 plus calories in order to accomplish that. Well, how many calories am I taking in? Well, look, there's a really simple way to do this, and it's through an app called MyFitnessPal. Okay, I'm a huge fan of this app, right? Because what I can do is I can go in here, I can tap this, and this is just pulled in all the things that I've been eating throughout the day. So I can see that I've had a total of 716 calories so far. Now that's low for me because I'm actually cutting right now, which we might talk about at a later time because there's been some negative effects on my immunity during that cut. So I wouldn't necessarily recommend trying to get down to a very low body fat if you have CF, especially if you're more sick. But anyway, guys, it's really simple. Like, I'm drinking kombucha right now. So check this out. I can hit this. I'm going to go over here. I'm going to add a food to my lunch. There's a barcode scanner right here. So now I've got the barcode scanner. I'm going to hold up my barcode on my kombucha. It just scanned it. And now that easily, I'm able to add that into my daily intake. So actually I've had 766 calories now, right? Now, did that take any time? Did that look inconvenient? It's not. Once you learn how to use that app, it can help you from a scientific aspect track your caloric intake and figure out, am I actually taking in enough nutrition? One more thing I also forgot to throw out there was liquids, right? If you're really, really struggling to intake enough food, this is where liquid calories can come in, right? Solid food sits in your stomach for a while. It keeps you from getting hungry. Well, we have things like Scandi Shake, weight gainer shakes. It's actually very common in bodybuilding to see mass gainers, right? They'll usually have pretty high amounts of calories. I've actually been taking one from Optimum Nutrition when I'm in a bulk phase of my training. The strawberry flavor, like only 20 ounces of that, I think, is over 700 calories, right? And that's just drink it and go. I'm hungry again in another hour or two, right? So that can be a really helpful way to cram in some calories. Even this is on the unhealthy side, but something like a milkshake, right?
And a lot of you guys already do that too. I know that's a pretty common recommendation with nutritionists in terms of shakes. Something that I'd like to point out with my shakes, I actually just drink one. This looks disgusting, but
that looks gross.
I make my shake. I try to make it out of whole food and supplements rather than just drinking and Ensure. Guys, there's no telling honestly what is in those Ensure shakes. It's 350 calories, but based on some of the studies that you'll read about them, they're less than desirable. And so, for an example of what I drink, it's about 1,200 calories. It's a cup and a half of oats, 2 scoops of something called Real Carb through 5% Nutrition, 2 scoops of protein powder, greens powder through First Form, and 2 tablespoons of peanut butter and a banana. It's a lot of ingredients, right?
Wow.
But with that, I'm getting about 1,200 calories. I'm getting a full meal, a little over a full meal, and I am, and it's quick. It goes in my stomach. It goes in my system. I never feel bloated. It's easily digestible and makes me feel amazing after a workout. And so
that brings an interesting point, right? Guys, when you experiment with different foods, pay attention to what your body tells you. Things we should watch out for are bloating, stomach pain, gas, which those are all normal when you have CF anyway. But if you pay attention when you're eating certain foods, some people are sensitive to dairy, for instance. I do great with dairy. I forgot to mention that earlier. I do a lot of dairy to help increase my calories at times. Especially like the fats from cheese and stuff can be pretty cool. But really, and you even need to be assessing your bowel movements. Like, take a look in the toilet and see if one day is better than the other, and then think back about all the things that you ate that gave you a healthier bowel movement, right? You should be evaluating these things because, we're just kind of shotgunning you guys all this advice, but it is going to require some work and experimentation on your part.
Well, and it's just like I said earlier, your body's going to react differently to different things, and every individual is going to be different. And so
Correct.
Definitely paying attention to what you're enjoying, what your body is reacting to, how it's absorbing the food that you're eating, and then also just your general energy and performance when you are going to start an exercise program. What foods help you perform better in the gym? It's going to make all of the difference in your everyday life. But I do want to go ahead and close everything up here. We did cover quite a bit with nutrition, but as we said earlier, we definitely want to make this a fuller topic. It's extremely crucial. A lot of personal trainers and Sam and I both believe that, it's 70-30 in the gym. 70% of your overall fitness health is going to be through what you're eating. 30% is going to be through your exercise. And so we really believe that, eating the right foods and drinking the right foods essentially is extremely important to your overall health. But in conclusion, I just want to say, do what you love. Find a workout plan that works for you, whether it be flexing in a mirror and bodybuilding or, running a marathon, whatever it may be. Figure out what it is. If you need some help, we're here for you. Feel free to message us, ask us questions. We're here. We'll help you find your niche. We'll help you find what you love to do. But just keep experimenting. And also with us too, like and subscribe, guys. We really want to keep making these podcasts. We'd love to hear more topics on things that you feel need to be discussed within cystic fibrosis or, just the fitness industry in general. And we would love to, once again, help you guys figure out what's going to work for you.
Yeah, guys, these first series of podcasts are definitely going to be geared more specifically to cystic fibrosis. And in general, that's going to be our theme, right? It's a pretty present thing in our lives. But Jake and I actually know a lot about fitness in general. We want to grow our fitness brand as well. I tell people all the time, you don't always want to go up to the guy that's really fit and ask him for advice, because he might have such good genetics that no matter what he tried, he always got great results, right? People that have had to struggle are probably going to know a lot more because they had to fail 100 different ways before they could figure out what was going to be successful. So I tell people all the time, dude, if I can look like this with cystic fibrosis and you don't have it, I can help you do anything. You're not going to have it half as hard as I did, right? But you're also going to learn from all my mistakes. I get to just teach you what works. So we do need your help growing. Again, hit that like, subscribe, talk about us with your friends, share us. The bigger we can grow, the more people we can reach with our message, because we don't just want to target cystic fibrosis. Look, guys, every human body needs exercise to thrive, right? We cannot be the best version of ourselves without healthy bodies. So this is our message. Work out, your whole life will get better.
Lastly, I want to promote one thing that I've been doing since I got out of the hospital. Okay, we've been talking about fitness, nutrition, and all of this stuff, and I just came to me that I really think this is going to be beneficial for you guys. Exercise requires a certain amount of discipline, and it requires a steady routine. And for myself, that's hard to do. I'm a very disorganized individual. I'm just going to be upfront and honest right now. It is hard for me to stay organized in an everyday routine. I've got 1,000 thoughts going off in my brain at once. And you can probably see this in the podcast. Every time I raise my eyebrows, it's something else that I'm thinking. And so with that being said, after getting out of the hospital, I found this challenge. It's called the 75 Hard. It sounds a little goofy, but essentially for 75 days, the guy that created this challenge is asking that you, 1, drink a gallon of water a day, 2, make sure that you're doing a minimal of 2 workouts a day, with one of those workouts being outside. Each workout has to be at least 45 minutes long. 3, follow a diet plan. Okay, no alcohol, no sodas. And 4, he's asking that you read 10 pages of a development book. So self-development, health and wellness, whatever you're interested in improving in your life, read a book about it, right? Now, there's, of course, in this 75 Hard challenge, Sam and I, we probably both don't agree that you need to be doing two a day workouts 7 days a week, especially with CF. However, there is some form of discipline that's going to be created through setting a routine for yourself for 75 days that is just going to pay off dividends in the things that we're literally discussing with you in this podcast. And so it might be something that you guys would like to look up. It's created by a guy named Andy Frisella. He's owner of the First Form Products supplement company, and it really takes us home in terms of the discipline and well-being that Sam and I covered in our last podcast, as well as learning how to eat better and working out, which is what we're covering in this one. So take a look at it, and like Sam said, just make sure you like and subscribe, and be sure to follow us.
All right, thanks, guys.